This time on the Star Trek Universe podcast, we will be going into the forest. Discovery 109, Into the Forest I Go. Right after this.
Welcome to the Star Trek Universe podcast. My name is Matthew Carroll.
I am David C. Robertson.
Yo, Dave. What's up, man?
I don't know, man. I don't even know.
You ready to handle this rewatch? You ready to continue this rewatch?
Nah, man.
Oh, you're done? Yeah, we're getting close. So a little behind the scenes. We tried to do a lot of these discoveries ahead of time because we're going to try to drop them 2 a week. On the weeks leading up to the release of Discovery Season 2, and it has caught up with us now. We're now about to be behind the 8 ball. We gotta bank some episodes, man.
I know it, man. It's been a busy few weeks.
It has. Christmas, New Year's. So basically, if you're listening to this when it comes out, you're listening to it probably right after we recorded it. So welcome to the current timeline. You didn't even realize you were. This is like one of those episodes where you suddenly realize you've been watching things out of time. You know.
Yeah.
This was a nonlinear podcast.
And sadly, when you said that, welcome to the current timeline, I thought of Lost, not Star Trek.
There's so many good time travel things.
My first thought was like not Penny's boat.
This is not Penny's timeline. I think I should just tell the audience how much I love time travel stories.
Uh-huh.
I just do. I just love time travel stories. And it's really easy to mess them up and have them be trite. Uh-huh. But I still just always have so much fun with all that, like, causality and, you know. The funny thing is, I think the show that handles time travel the worst is probably Doctor Who. By virtue of it always being a time travel show, so it just it kind of has to ignore time travel. Like oh no, causality doesn't matter. Timey-wimey, whatever.
Sometimes it matters, but
yeah, exactly.
It's not a fixed point in time.
Exactly. Sometimes it matters. That's a good quote for Doctor Who in general.
Yep. Sometimes it matters.
I love Doctor Who. There are moments of that show I love, but there's large chunks that just don't matter. All right. Let's talk Star Trek Discovery, Season 1, Episode 9, Into the Woods I Go.
Into the Forest I Go. Matt?
Well, let's talk about that one then. Fine. You win.
All right, so the summary, courtesy of CBS All Access. Bypassing Starfleet's orders, Lorca uses the U.S.S. Discovery crew's ultimate asset, the ship itself, in an effort to end the war with the Klingons once and for all. So they don't get into the weeds in these summaries, man.
Nah, we probably could find other summaries. The memory outlines are nice, but they're more like, they're the synopsis. I think they're probably the synopsis that CBS releases before the episode comes out, so you just have, you don't get an ending or anything.
So it was from CBS All Access.
So yeah, full spoiler alert, we're going to talk this episode. Spoiler alert for the episode, we're not going to talk until the end about things that go on after this episode. This is a rewatch, after all. But feel safe if it's your first time watching this episode. This episode was fun. It was a wrap-up episode. It's a mid-season finale. Mm-hmm. I love where it left us. I think this episode was the first time I was kind of on board for Discovery on the first watch.
Really?
Yeah, like I liked Discovery fine. I hated the first 2 episodes so much the first time I watched this series that it took me a while to warm up to it. And this episode ending with them in a strange place that I assumed was probably either time travel or something big was happening. The whole episode felt like just a good triumphant crew comes together, does a really complicated thing to stop an enemy that, you know, it was a nice episode in general, but then that mystery of where are they at the end of the episode was very exciting to me.
See, I might have, without spoiling it, I might have enjoyed it more at the end because I knew where they were. Because Jonathan Frakes spoiled it.
Oh, did he? Funny.
Yeah.
I knew where they were. Or I guessed where they were. I did not have it spoiled for me, luckily. But I didn't say it because I didn't want to spoil it for anyone who's watching it for the first time. But that was my most likely assumption. There were other theories, but that was my most likely assumption, and it made me very excited.
I mean, CBS All Access, you know, I give it to them because it was their first time. But, like, they had so much shit spoiled. Like, lock your shit down, dude. Lock it down.
Yeah, that's real stupid.
Like, tell your people, hey, don't say this.
Mm-hmm. Don't be saying stuff.
Don't underestimate your fans, because they're going to guess the guy that, you know... Well, never mind. That's a spoiler for later.
You're like, don't trust your people. They're going to spoil stuff. I mean... They're not trustworthy like me. I would only... Oh, wait.
Yep. I am Tom Holland.
I am Tom Holland. We're all Tom Holland. We are Groot. We are Tom Holland. Funny if Tom Holland could only say, I am Tom Holland.
Yeah. I am Mark Ruffalo.
All right. Yeah.
Dude, I love this episode. I really did. It brings closure to the chapter.
Uh-huh.
It sets up the next chapter like remarkably well. Like I was so excited about this. I mean, of course, I knew where they were going, but it was, oh my gosh, dude. I guess we'll unpack this a little bit. I did not, however, need to see Klingon nipples.
Yeah, that was weird. I didn't really mind it, I guess. I mean, I wasn't like... I feel like saying that opens me up to ridicule, but I didn't really care. I don't know.
You know, I don't...
What bothered you about it?
What bothered me?
Is this just like your own sexual repression you're pushing on us, Dave? 'Cause,
a little bit.
Yeah. See, I think I've given up on all that.
I mean, look, I feel like if I purposefully didn't pause it in those places...
Saying that, Dave, makes it sound very much like you really wanted to pause it in those areas. You're like, no, just as a xenobiologist.
It was one of those things. I felt the same. Okay, I felt the same way about the Klingon nipples as I did the torture scenes. Like, I feel like I'm a ghoul if I pause it. I feel like I'm a pervert if I pause it in those segments. And I don't really want to see it, but, like, having seen it so quickly, I feel like I imagined worse than there was. Like, did they make her nipples as ridged as the Klingons' foreheads? One of them looked like it was half bitten off. I don't know what happened.
I didn't look that closely.
I didn't look closely. I just was sitting there, and
you doth protest too much, Dave.
Oh, that's horse shit, and you know
it. Just come on, man. Just let it go. It's fine. You can stop. You can examine the beauty of a Klingon body without letting guilt seep in. If you feel like examining that Klingon nudity, you go ahead.
Not a fan, man. Not a fan.
I mean, you know, so it's fine. L'Orelle's banging for her age. I don't know.
What?
I have no idea what her age is. Sorry. Okay. Like,
no, all of those scenes were so disturbing anyway.
Real women have ridges, Dave.
Oh my gosh.
All right. So, are we wrapped on the Klingon nudity portion of the podcast?
I just never needed it. I never needed it, nor did I seek it out.
Yes, you did. You brought it up.
No,
you started a Star Trek podcast 3 months ago. You did a bunch of episodes, and then you specifically brought up the topic when this episode came up. You brought this on yourself.
It's the first nudity in Star Trek. I feel like unless you count like the weird like nipples of those Vulcan women in Star Trek 3, like from way far off, like. You're just like, why are they just wearing like nightgowns? It's a Vulcan ritual.
Your wiki knowledge of all Star Trek nudity. You're like, because you clearly were like, this is the first Star Trek nudity, and then there was a pop up in your brain. Don't forget those nipples in Star Trek 3, Dave.
I grew up in a very like repressed Southern Baptist house. I was very worried. I was very worried that
we met in those pews, man.
Yeah, I was very worried that a parent was going to like just pop in every time I watched Star Trek 3 and just be like, what? and that Katra freaking scene goes on forever. I'm like, just go ahead and put his freaking consciousness back in his body. Don't show me the Vulcan ladies walking around real slow in the background, even if it is from afar.
There's just to be clear, there are also very clearly visible nipples in the first episode of Enterprise.
What?
They're not. They're just a shape. You don't see through the shirt. But that gel rub down scene.
I don't consider shape nudity.
No, I wouldn't call it nudity, but it is pretty clearly you can see nipple.
Right. I
guess you did say the first nudity in Trek. You didn't say the first nipples in Trek.
Right.
That would probably be Kirk.
It actually is Kirk.
Yeah.
I think it's Charles. No, I think it's Where No Man Has Gone Before. Is like the first episode with Kirk.
I know.
I think
it was just the assuredness, and I'm sure you're right. But it was just this. I made it as a joke. Actually, it's probably Kirk. And you're like, actually, it is Kirk. It was like just the deadpan seriousness. I don't know.
Yeah.
C.S. Lewis speaking about sex. And Eros love in the Four Loves said there's nothing more needed for Eros love than laughter. like a dose of laughter. And so, I don't know, I'm just feeling that right now. Like
I live my life by that.
Just like taking sex less seriously. And so, I don't know, just talking about all the nipples on Star Trek is really funny to me.
Right.
It's a very funny.
Well, if I took that at all seriously, I'd be very depressed.
Let's keep to Star Trek. Stop talking about your actual life.
I didn't know I was.
Sorry. All right, let's get this train back on the rails. Let's talk about some other characters in this episode. Big thing is, I think one of my favorite parts of this episode was the entire area. It just felt very Kirk-ish to me. The entire faking out Starfleet to think you're going to do what they said when really you're going completely against them.
Yes, that was very Kirk.
Yeah, loved that. I love when the crew is having discussions that like yes, he needs to go give you that medical exam, right? That just felt very like Kirk talking to McCoy and be like, you got that medical exam that Spock needs, so he can't be on the bridge for this, right? Wink, wink. That was great. I really love that kind of stuff.
And I thought it was a believable way of getting him into sick bay for that evaluation that he needs. Like, it was a really good way of making Culber go, "Oh, you bastard!"
Yeah, it was cool because it was an emotionally complex scene, because we know from the last episode that Stamets said he can't tell Hugh about his problem, his side effects, because it'll make him have to admit to the genetic manipulation or something. It'll get him in trouble. He's either damned if he does or damned if he doesn't. So he just is avoiding telling Culver.
And then Tilly screws it up for me even further.
Yes. Tilly's big mouth screws it up again.
I love that look Stamets gives her. Like, it's just, I don't know what it was about it, but it was like very, very genuine. Yeah. And disgusted. Like, he was so pissed with her.
Yeah, but also felt guilty. There's this guilt in his face. Really, really, that actor, Stamets, is killing it. Stamets is probably one of my favorite additions to the Star Trek canon.
Yes.
Like, of all the characters on this show, especially like since his experiences with the Mycelium Network and his sort of hippie attitude, but also his regular scientific sort of sternness is already enjoyable, and then you add into that his like sort of hippie attitude. He's been a roller coaster of fun things on this season. Love it.
Yep.
Want more Stamets. I want more Stamets, damn it.
And I love Lorca's manipulation of Stamets in the episode. He actually does make a pretty good case for Stamets to do that 133 jumps.
He totally
And he's
does.
We'll
talk more about that in the spoiler section at the end, because that's actually the main thing I want to talk about in the spoiler section, like motivations and why and who and how, like all that stuff is really interesting. Lorca's sort of light touch, knowing when to use a heavy touch and a light touch to get people to do what you want them to do, is really cool. It's really well done. Really, really well done. And giving Stamets that medal, like it's also interesting to talk about his motivations. So we'll get to that more in the spoiler section.
But I did like the way they like wove that story in to like having Burnham and Tyler have to go back to the ship of the dead and like face their individual demons.
Yes, absolutely. Really, really cool. And finding out the Admiral's alive, that was interesting. Really did. It was a great episode. It felt. This episode feels like a lot of the Star Trek books I read as a kid. Where you've got like a lot of things, a lot of little sort of smaller storylines happening on different ships, and you kind of really explore the characters. This, to me, Discovery really has captured that, and it's because DS9 did this too, but I think it's because of the serialized storytelling of, instead of having an episode where it's just about the ship of the dead, we've just had these little drips and draps of like storyline on the ship of the dead this whole time, and then finally like all of our other storylines combine with that to create this episode, and that's what I love. I love that kind of stuff. I love that sort of combining of all these different storylines into this one really cool. This is when I want the really cool battle sequence, and we got it. Like, just Discovery fighting the ship of the dead was super fun, and solving the equation with the 133 jumps. Like, that was just super badass.
Oh man, I knew bad things were going to happen when. Well, I knew bad things were going to happen anyway, but
right
when he promises Culber that he'll go see La Boheme with him.
Oh, yeah.
And he's going to have plenty of time off after this. Ugh.
Right.
I'm like, oh man.
Well, I did not. That didn't resonate with me, and we'll see. We'll see if bad things happen, but it was mostly just that, like, I don't know yet that Discovery is that kind of show. Like, I thought. I don't know. Maybe it's not that kind of show, Dave. maybe people can be happy on this show.
This episode did not end in a very happy place for Stamets.
Right, yeah, that's true. That's true.
So I don't think that's a spoiler to say.
No, yeah, you're right. That last jump did him in.
Mm-hmm. And by the way, I loved when they pulled him out of the chamber and they turn him over and his eyes are white. It reminded me of Gary Mitchell in Where No Man Has Gone Before, the first episode, or the second pilot, I should say.
Right.
They do that great shot where they like turn him over and like his head kind of comes into view and we see his eyes are white. They didn't do that exactly, but he as well like saw things in ways that no human should.
Yeah.
Cosmically woke, we'll say.
Mm-hmm. He has been more and more cosmically woke. What, he had some quote. Oh, man. I can't remember it. I didn't write it down. I should have written it down. He said something about... oh, gosh. He said something right when he came out. Or while he was in there. He said something about...
Seeing the path or something?
Yeah. I can't remember. I have to go back.
What was it? I don't remember it. I don't remember. I'm sorry.
Gotcha. It's all good. So, any other characters we haven't really touched on? I guess Saru kind of was absent this episode. He didn't do a whole lot.
He didn't do a lot, and I was fine with that. It was, he had the last couple episodes. That's
very true. He did stand up for the Pavans.
He did.
Which I thought was interesting. It's interesting that he cared about the Pavans in the way that he did, and they're not treating that as a... I love that this show does not erase the fact that he cares about the Pavans. Like, it would have been really easy to be like, oh, I was just under a spell, and now I'm back to being a Starfleet officer with no traits whatsoever. A lot of Star Trek. But this leaving him caring about the Pavans is interesting, and it gives that whole episode more weight. I like that a lot.
I'll tell you what I loved. When Lorca is talking to that Vulcan admiral whose name I can never remember.
Right.
And he says he shows his true nature for just a second, and then picks it back up, realizes what he does because he's in front of the crew, and he's like, "You want me to run from a fight?
Yeah,
and leave a peaceful species to face annihilation?"
Yeah, absolutely. That's all stuff, too, we need to talk about in the spoiler section, because I have a lot to say about that. He's a different kind of Starfleet captain, that is for sure.
Absolutely.
I think the least interesting part of this episode for me was the Burnham stuff.
Really?
Yeah, I think it's still my hangover from the first episode, which I liked better the second time than the first time, but I still just, that Battle of the Binary Stars just did not capture my attention the way that the show wanted it to. The show wanted that to be the big launching, the battle that launches the whole emotional arc of her character, and I enjoyed everything she did this episode fine, but it just didn't resonate like I think I was supposed to feel like she's returning to this big moment in Star Trek history, like this big the beginning of the war, and it just didn't feel. It just kind of felt like another alien ship that she's just trying to do it, put a goober in a thing to do the thing.
Yes and no. I can see what you're saying. I don't think I agree. I think. It's hard to say because she wasn't facing Takuvma. She killed Takuvma already, so...
Right. But she's still going back and literally, defending the honor of her old captain. Like, the Philippa Giorgio comm badge. Just I felt nothing, and this might be just my heartless soul, but like I just didn't feel anything for that scene, and I felt like I was supposed to. I felt like there's all this weight when he like slaps it on his chest. It was like he's dishonoring her captain. She's there to refight a battle she fought once before. And then the way it ended also just didn't have much punch to me, because I felt like she needed to win that battle. Like, that's why she's there, is to refight a battle she's fought before. And instead of winning, she jumps off a banister and teleports out. Like, it felt like, and there wasn't anything particularly neat about her jumping off the banister to teleport out. We've seen in Star Trek before people do mid-air teleports. So it just didn't, I don't know. I felt like that could have been explained to me more, why I should care about her in this moment.
Again, I see what you're saying. I do agree with you on some level, but I also felt like it was perfectly serviceable. Like,
sure.
One of the things I really liked about her not actually killing him is because he has no honor. Like, he acts like he's the one that did it, and she's like, you weren't here. And how do you know that? Because I was.
Yeah, no,
and
I like that.
She kind of burns him in front of everyone, and then she doesn't even need to, give him the honor of killing him. Like, nope, she's going to pop out, and then they're just going to blow up their ship.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Like, I liked that.
Yeah,
I liked everything with Ash.
I guess one of the things she did in the Battle of the Binary Stars is she killed Takuvma, and she didn't necessarily need to.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe her running at the end and like just leaving was the opposite of that. Maybe, I don't know. I'm just I guess maybe I'm trying to draw connections that aren't there. Maybe that's why it doesn't.
And I feel like her taking back the badge is her taking back her own honor.
Maybe. Yeah, it definitely was supposed to be her somehow reliving the Battle of the Binary Stars and fighting, doing it differently, and fighting for the memory of Georgiou, and all this stuff's built in there. And I just felt like maybe they could have driven all that home better, because I don't know that I'm having a hard time materializing the thought that I want to make about this, because I feel like they didn't make a clear statement about all of that stuff that they're putting in this episode. I don't feel like a clear theme was presented to me.
I understand, man. It's human nature to want to blame others for your own shortcomings.
Yeah, no, it's definitely true. It's definitely true. Thanks for bringing it up. All right. Well, I feel like that the thing about this episode that excites me the most is what it's setting up, and so I feel like we can go no further without getting into spoilers. So let's talk about our quotes for this episode, and let's talk about some trivia, and then let's get into some spoilers. Does that sound good?
Sure, that's fine.
What's your quotes, yo?
Well, I do love the one that I already mentioned. You want me to run from a fight and leave us a peaceful species to face annihilation? He didn't say it that way, but it had an air of that.
I like that one too. Mine is I only have one from this episode, but it's I have no intention of reaching our destination, but if you're planning on disobeying a direct order, best not to advertise that fact. There's just something very Kirk and very Malcolm Reynolds about that quote.
Yes, and I had that quote as well with more added on. I loved that, and then I also loved that, like, because I was thinking, like, this Vulcan is very emotional, and then he calls it out. You heard the panicked Admiral.
That's awesome. You heard the panicked Admiral.
Starfleet's tired of fighting the Klingon cloaking devices and losing. So am I. That's the thing that I noticed about Lorca in this episode. Like, I feel like he is doing a Tommy Lee Jones impersonation, and I love it. But I feel like that's what he's doing.
Yeah, he definitely has that, like, southern. He reminds me of Tommy Lee Jones from The Fugitive. Like, that's exactly the Tommy Lee Jones you're talking about.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Great. What other quotes you got?
The only other quote I have is I guess technically a great bridge, no pun intended, into the spoiler section. But I'll go ahead and say it here. I like that he says, "Let's go home."
Oh yeah, no, it's a great quote.
As he's entering the new course in his little chair rest.
Yes,
that is
a great quote. All right, and that's with that. Let's.
Do you want to do trivia real quick before we get into spoilers?
Let's talk trivia, and then let's get into this.
All right. So trivia. The episode's title apparently comes from, and by the way, all this trivia comes from Memory Alpha. The episode's title comes from a quote by John Muir. Into the forest I go to lose my mind and find my soul, and they chose it because they believed it especially reflected Michael Burnham's journey over the past 8 episodes.
Lose my mind and find my soul.
Mm-hmm.
Ugh, I kind of hate that. That makes me like this episode less. Because the whole thing I liked about Burnham, and I feel like the first episode, the whole thing about her path in life has been to balance her logic and emotions, and that quote seems to say, given that, and then her not learning to trust herself at the end, and her logic and her emotions failing her at the Battle of the Binary Stars, and then her trying to refine that balance. Like, that's, to me, that's what's interesting about her as a character, is she's a character that has found that balance, supposedly, or believes she has. So this is, the quote is like, to lose my mind and find my soul. Is that the quote?
Yeah.
To me, that sounds like forsake logic and embrace emotions. And I don't know if I like that. I hate that. If that's the interpretation, do you see it another way?
I don't, but I like it. Because if you look at the episode when she basically finds her emotion with Tyler at the end of this episode when he reveals what L'Rell did to him. Mm-hmm. And it actually was, this is part of this trivia, actually. It wasn't scripted that Burnham cry when he tells her about him being raped, essentially. But she did it anyway. She cried a single tear.
Yeah, that was a really impressive cry, that tear.
She says it came organically, and then when it happened, everyone choked up, and everyone knew that was the take they wanted to use.
Yeah, that tear was really. I was watching that and didn't know. I was like, was that a CGI tear? It so came out of nowhere. Like it wasn't like most of the time when you see people on screen cry, they have to sort of work themselves into it. You see them squinting their eyes. You see them like sort of searching for that emotion. Mm-hmm. And like, I'm trying to do it. But she was just like, in true Burnham fashion, holding sort of like a still face, sort of logical look, but then that tear just rolls. It was really good. I was very impressed by that moment.
So they apparently were originally going to have him, Stamets, make 525,600 jumps.
What?
And it was an in-joke reference to the song Seasons of Love from the musical Rent, which Anthony Rapp and Wilson Cruz at different times appeared in. And they decided that was too much. They chose 133 as an homage to the Battlestar Galactica pilot 33 that was written by Ronald D. Moore. And they did include a nod to Rent, which was Les Bohèmes.
Yeah, I saw that.
Which is what Rent is based on.
La Vie Bohème is the song in Rent as well that he sings. He sings part of. La Vie Bohème.
All right, we didn't need a sample.
La Bohème is Rent based on La Bohème? Is that what they're saying?
Yeah,
I didn't realize that. Okay, cool.
So apparently, Lorca telling Stamets that he chose to go where no one has gone before is chronologically the earliest instance of the phrase, including the term "no one."
Yeah.
It's always been where no man has gone before previously in the timeline.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Oh, this episode is the first episode to feature a romantic kiss between two men.
Huh.
It aired 22 years and 13 days after the first romantic kiss between two women, which was in DS9 Rejoined.
Oh, cool.
Want to talk spoilers?
Yes, I do. I really do. Done with this trivia. Shh. All right, let's get into some spoilers. Everybody, we're going to talk now about the entire season, or how this episode affects what's going forward. So if you haven't watched the entire season, if you're watching this for the first time, leave us now. Go check us out at StarTrekUcast.com. We're over there, and you can find all the social things, and you can go like us on all the things and give us reviews. Okay, spoiler alert, 3, 2, 1. What are we doing? What are we talking about? Lorca's a baddie.
Yeah, they're in the mirror universe.
They're in the mirror universe, and this whole episode, watching it through that lens is a completely different experience. Because everything Lorca does leads them to that. And when he is... You obviously know he wants Stamets to make the jumps. And when I mean, they pretty much say it in this episode. It's not even that big of a spoiler that they're in an alternate universe, because he tells Stamets that's where they can possibly be going. That's where it looks like the mycelium network travels to other universes. We know that now. That's in the show. That's not even future knowledge. The big spoiler is knowing that Lorca is from the mirror universe, and that he is intending on taking them back there. And when you're right. The one of the best quotes of the episode is, "Let's go home." I freaking loved that.
I wonder if they're going to revisit the mycelial network and go into alternate universes.
I don't know.
I wonder if that's how it's canon. You know what I mean? Like, if Discovery is in a separate universe and somehow they wind up in the Prime universe eventually, or
interesting.
If the storyline will eventually play into the Prime timeline, but is not currently in it. Like, there are several ways they can do it, but
right,
like the writers and producers have gone back and forth, I feel like, on whether or not the aesthetic is part of a bigger plan, or if the aesthetic is just a soft reboot of what happened before.
Right. I really hate the term soft reboot.
I do too.
Just like what it entails is like, we're going to reboot, but not really. It's like, just do it or don't. Like,
yeah,
there is no try,
Don't go quoting Star Wars on a Star Trek show, man.
Sorry.
I really don't care.
I post, I do the Marvel Cinematic Universe podcast, and this week I changed one of my Facebook avatars to a Superman image.
That guy was like, traitor.
Someone wrote traitor. And I said, I walk between worlds, man.
Yeah, man.
So same thing here. I walk between worlds.
Yeah. You're like Blade. You're like the Daywalker.
Yeah, man. I am. I'm the Wars Walker. No. I don't know.
No,
I'm definitely a Star Trek fan before I'm a Star Wars fan. But when appropriate, I'll watch me a Star Wars.
That reminds me, it's one of my favorite quotes from Shatner. He was on Conan, and I've mentioned it on the show before, but there's a bit where he's talking about Star Trek, and he accidentally says Star Wars, and everyone in the audience boos.
Yeah,
and Shatner says, "We could share," and Conan's like, "Yeah, we can share," and then Shatner goes, "Space is vast."
That's funny. Yes, Shatner saying Star Wars instead of Star Trek is insane to me. But at the same time, I get it. I don't know. It's like, at that point, I just feel like Star Trek is so much a part of his life. Like, every day he is doing something because he was on Star Trek,
Uh-huh.
So it's such a weird life being Kirk. Like, that's such a strange position to be in for your whole life. It's like, you'll never outlive it. You can do other work that's good. Like, I know these Boston Legal is supposed to be really, really good.
Absolutely.
I have not seen it. I've been meaning to forever.
Me too.
But yeah, it's strange. It's strange being Kirk. Yeah, it's weird. I can't imagine being Kirk and missaying Star Trek as Star Wars. That's crazy.
Yeah.
It's like the most offensive thing I've ever heard. And I live in the South.
That says more about you than it does about anyone else.
It definitely does. Oh, man. Okay. So, that's really the biggest... Okay, so the Lorca stuff, super interesting. Any other big moments that you thought Lorca did something that maybe foreshadowed?
No.
Okay. I mentioned it in the main cast. I loved how he has a hard touch when he needs one and a soft touch when he needs one. Mm-hmm. When he goes to Stamets and he's like, we need to make these 133 jumps, and he's able to convince him through, science. He's like, here is the reason we need to do it. If you're not going to do it to save the Federation and save this, you need to do it for science because you're a scientist, and here's the reason.
Yeah.
And then when we needs him to do one last jump that is less necessary for their current situation, he sets him up by giving him an award to make him feel like he's the kind of guy who would do the last jump, Mm-hmm. He sets him up with an award, intentionally puts Stamets on a pedestal so that when he talks to Stamets about this last jump and how he's going to he doesn't even mention a jump. He talks about going home by warp, and Stamets is like, we're not going to jump? I won an award by jumping. It's he so twists Stamets in that moment. It's so good.
If we've put the crew through enough, they deserve to be home safely, blah, blah, blah. Oh, man.
We're flying there by warp 5. It's just such a masterful stroke of manipulation. Love it. I love it, love it.
He even goes so far as to use that little negotiation technique, where he starts talking about we're gonna, and then after that we'll go all over the place, exploration, blah blah, and Stamets is like, no, I mean one more, which is all Lorca really wanted. Right. He just wanted the one more.
That's all he needs.
He just overshot what his plans were to make Stamets go, oh no, just one more. Oh, you bastard.
Yeah. Whew, man. Good stuff. Really, really great episode. Particularly in hindsight with all the Mirror Universe stuff.
Mm-hmm.
I did not love... I don't love how they introduced the Ash Tyler Vogue stuff.
How come?
I guess on a first watch, it felt earned. It felt like PTSD. On a second watch, I don't know, man. I just really... don't get into the whole what am I trying to say? The whole alien vision of some sort of weird ritual story thing. I don't know, freezing up and imagining that. It for some reason it just doesn't. I don't enjoy it. It has nothing to do with it being bad. I just personally don't enjoy that kind of storyline, and so. It did not. I did not like it as much this time as I did the first time, which is maybe the only thing on the rewatch that I've enjoyed less. Okay. Is Ash Tyler freezing up. I just kind of want him to be I don't know. I liked it better when it was PTSD, which I know at this point I'm supposed to think that.
Well, I think it was still PTSD, honestly.
Maybe.
He's remembering all of the torment he went through as she changed him over.
Yes, but I think it's more than that. I think it's Vogue. I think it's the multiple personalities clashing with each other. It's him seeing L'Rell. Too. That's what I on a second watch. That's what I'm seeing it as, and it kind of just makes me annoyed. I don't know why.
See, I think he truly thinks he's Ash Tyler, so I feel like he is experiencing memories and torment. And he doesn't understand what they were. He just knows that it's torment. He doesn't remember that he was Vogue.
Right. Sure. I agree.
But I think he... I don't know if that's a good point. I don't know if his rape memories are real or if they're I don't know, like, false memories that she placed there to, like, make him feel like that's what happened and not all of the reconstructive surgery.
Yeah. Or if she just continued to... Well, and he even says...
Or if they're both real.
He even says he asked for it. Like, he encouraged it. Which is still rape because of the power dynamic. But... it's real strange. It's real strange because I guess Voq and L'Rell could have been lovers as Voq and L'Rell. That was never really made clear.
He has memories of her raping him for 7 months, right?
Yes.
He hasn't been there for 7 months. That is a false memory. Like, he is not the real Ash Tyler.
That's true. That's true. So that has to be a fake memory, and I guess it's a fake memory that triggers. Obviously, it triggers because he sees L'Rell. It's all. I don't know, man. That's just all the unless Ash Tyler was a real person, and they somehow took his. We still don't fully understand how the matriarchy or whatever that is put where these Ash Tyler's memories came from. Is the Ash Tyler that has been written on over Voq's brain somehow? Is it a completely fabricated Ash Tyler, or did they somehow extract memories from a real Ash Tyler and insert them into Voq? In which case. Well, yeah. The real Ash Tyler could have been tortured for 7 months, but L'Rell was not there for 7 months. So It definitely wasn't L'Rell raping him for 7 months if there was someone raping him.
I think they somehow programmed memories into him, but also I think the rape was false. Because, like, when he is having all those flashbacks of the torture, he's having flashbacks of torture. But when he relives it to Michael Burnham, that shit is rape. It's a different thing completely. So I think that is all just implanted memories to cover the trauma. Like, he knows that they know that he's going to have a strong emotional reaction to Klingons and to specifically L'Rell. So she has to put something in there to, like, cover that trauma and make sense for him.
Maybe. That makes sense. Okay, so yeah, that's interesting. I'd love to, and I think they leave it vague on purpose because they know, and this is fine. I don't mind this. They know that us Star Trek fans will headcanon the shit out of what happened as long as they don't give us too much specifics. One of the worst things these shows and movies of this sort of nature can do when you're trying with a big sweeping universe is to get real specific with the details. It reminds me of the Spider-Man Homecoming when they say like 7 years later or whatever. It's like clearly not 7 years later based on all the other canon. And if they just said current day or something like that, they just gone like some other anything but actually giving a time frame, we could have headcanoned it. But then they gave us actually this many years. I'm like, no, it doesn't work.
Yeah, I mean, the first thing it makes me remember think of is the original Star Trek series, because Roddenberry didn't want to like actually commit to when it was in our future. So like sometimes they would say it's like, oh, this took place 500 years ago, or this took place 300 years ago. Oh, we haven't had this in 250 years. Right.
It annoys me when they do it differently. That isn't. Yeah, they should just leave it vague, unless they're going to be specific, and then you got to be specific. So it's I think they're very very deliberately leaving the whole Ash Tyler Voq thing vague. Like we don't know if it was a real Ash Tyler that turned into Voq. If we know that supposedly it's Voq's body that has been refitted to look like Ash Tyler. We know that much, but we don't know anything else really. We don't know where those memories came from. All right. Anything else on this spoiler section, my friend?
I'm just excited to rewatch what happens to Stamets. I liked him so. I like him so much. I do.
Yeah, me too. Me too. All right. Well, guys, thank you so much for hanging out with us. We're the Star Trek Universe Podcast. We'll be back with you real soon. We got a new short trek coming out tonight, I believe.
Yeah.
So we're going to be dropping that hopefully tonight. And then lots more Discovery coming, and Discovery Season 2 is like 14 days away, I believe. So that's pretty awesome.
Absolutely. I'm excited.
Me too, brother. Me too. All right, guys. Peace.
Live long and prosper.
To reach out to us, hit us up at StarTrekUcast.com, at StarTrekUcast on Twitter, Star Trek Universe Podcast on Instagram and Facebook. Just search for us there, or send us a message at StarTrekUcast@gmail.com. If you'd like to hear more from David C. Robertson, check out the DC On Screen podcast or maladjusted.tv. And if you want to hear more from Matthew Carroll, that's me, check out the Marvel Cinematic Universe podcast, or go listen to my music at MatthewCarrollmusic.com or anywhere you get music.